him again.
Good evening. We're going to call the Common Council to order. I will ask the clerk to take a quick roll call.
Alderperson Lysick.
Here.
Grisham. Here. Haas.
Here.
Keen.
Here.
Reinke.
Here.
Rote.
Here.
Stefanski.
Here.
Tenorio.
Here.
Vitale.
Aye. Here.
9 present, 1 excused.
One excuse. Thank you. We have a quorum. We'll move to item C. New and previous matters. We have one item.
Want me to read this?
Yeah, sure. Why don't you read it?
Ordinance to amend outdoor license premise regulations, recreate process for obtaining temporary extensions of a licensed premise, and perform various administrative updates to retail alcohol licensing.
Thank you.
All right, so I had brought this last week, we had kind of spoke about it briefly with the extended use. There were currently 3 different sections, a 5A, a 5B, and a 5C, and I felt that the language was a little bit confusing and also redundant. So I thought that it would be in our best interest to streamline, 1, from an admin standpoint, and 2, just from an understanding standpoint. So the ordinance that was attached is looking to have the extended use that they could apply for within their licensing. That would be, what we're looking at is about a $250 fee, and that just covers from Memorial Saturday until Labor Day that Tuesday. Within that is the basic standards outlined. You can have music, but it can't be amplified. You have to still have all the same parameters with it being fenced in, certain lighting, 200 feet from a residential property. You could have a service bar area, but no seating at that said area. So it really took all the basics to combine it, instead of every week something coming to License Health. Even for the owners, I thought it was a simplified process, that they're not wondering how to plan their summers, and I felt it was fair for them to have a better understanding that this is what you can get for these months. Now, obviously, we would approve certain extensions, or exceptions, I should say, where on the application process, you apply for a $250, and then it would be clearly written out what of the exceptions you need. So if you wanted amplified music, then that you would mark that, and that would be, as an example, with working with Rebecca, it would be based on the processing, an additional $150, and then $25 per week. It doesn't limit the amount in that week, it's just the additional $25 for that week. So if you want a owner, someone wants to apply each week, it's the initial $150. Rebecca, correct me if I'm wrong on the $150, that's a one-time, and then $25 per additional week. If you wanted to have an event outside of the duration listed, Memorial through Labor Day, then that's another exception. We could look at an exception out of normal duration, $25 for each additional week. And that is the reason for the cost, is that we have to process it also. There's people involved with that processing. It'll also help with regulations, to kind of simplify it more. So that's why this was brought up. I feel it's simplified. I feel it's easy to understand. I know we're still somewhat coming off of COVID, and we had waived these fees for a while, but at the same time, I would like to make this a norm that people could utilize their outdoor space, not just due to COVID. I think it was greatly appreciated from business owners and the community. I know I enjoyed sitting outside on nice summer days and listening to music and being able to get out. So I thought, long-term, this is a good utilization for business owners to have for their property, and any exception would still then go in front of the License and Health Committee. So if there's an exception outside the $250, the standard, then it would go to License and Health for review and approval. At the same time, it is written in there, if someone had paid for the additional weeks, but we're getting tons of calls from the police because of noise, fights, issues like that, they can be brought back in, and those weeks would be discussed. So, if anyone has any questions, you can.
Mayor Devine?
Thank you. Alderperson Grisham?
I have a couple questions, and Dana, thank you for bringing this forward, or Alderwoman Keene, I should say. And most of it is due to the framework of the fact of Paulie's coming forward, and I need some clarification on this. Now, when Paulie's came forward for his events for the summer, would this then be classified into the extension of use? Okay. All right, thank you for that clarification. Now, secondly, I think we might have a problem only if we are looking at bars and restaurants that would do that, where they'd be having what would be deemed as like a concert series. Right now, Polly's has 3 days a week. Tuesdays, Saturdays, I think Fridays and Saturdays, that he does his events outside. Do you find that this might be problematic if we open it up and say, okay, that could be 7 days a week in essence for $25? Or would we put it as a limitation to only 3 events, say if it's amplified music per week? Would that be reasonable to look at that? Because I'm just looking down the road, not just at Polly's, but that's the only example I have right now, that we may have problems.
I can let Kale chime in, but my personal thought process is these can be under review. So if noise complaints are coming from neighbors, Kale, is there restrictions within that week?
Yeah, so the way it's set up right now is you cannot have any sound, whether it's amplified music, live music. The issue is always how far is the sound going to travel. That's where the neighborhood disturbance comes from. So the ordinance actually doesn't create a distinction between what the source of the noise is. It just says noise has to be within 200 feet of your premises. If you want to go outside of 200 feet, if you want to do something that your noise is now audible outside of 200 feet, that's when you have to come in and get the authorization. And that's the $25 per week is the charge. So that's the starting point. For every week you want to go, it's $25 on top of the $150. But for that situation, a different part of the code allows the council to place conditions on any license. So all you do is say, all right, you're approved, it's $25 per week because that's the amount, but we're going to place an additional condition on your license that says you can't have more than 3 events per week, or you have to have the events Tuesday, Friday, Saturday every week. You can place that as a separate condition outside of this entire regime, this entire scheme.
Okay, thank you. That gives a great amount of clarity. And with that being said, then, with that $150 fee, that's a one-time, as Alderwoman Keene said, then $25 each week. Now, are we looking at that as an administrative fee alone? Or does that curtail anything like follow-up that we have to make sure we sign off on it with fire, other things that is considered an outdoor event per se?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, go ahead. Thank you.
It starts with a $250 fee.
Okay.
And then if you want that exception, then it would be the $150 extra, because we would be doing additional work with the other departments, as you mentioned, and that's why the $25 a week thing too. So the longer you have it and the more different things you want to do, the more it involves other departments and more duration of us having to do administrative work.
Okay, and do we feel that the $25 would be sufficient for a one week fee? For an event fee? Because right now, event fees, what were we looking at? $75 per event is what our event fees were? Is this
For the
separate of it?
special- Yeah, this is taking away that fee,
Exactly.
yeah.
So whereas it was 75 before for one single event, we're now dropping it down to 25 for a full week's event.
Correct.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Alderman Vitale.
Yeah, I have a question in reference of the proximity to 200 feet, within our city. How many really business places, I'm talking about taverns, that they are far apart from 200 feet, I think the percentage, I believe it's kind of minimum. I'm sure there's a few of them, but not a lot. So 200 feet. So what's the questions about if you over or less than 200 feet, you pay the $25 additional? That's a question in place right now, right?
Yes, that's.
Attorney
Mr. Mayor.
Decker, or,
Yeah, so then the other question is, say per se, Polly, well, I mean, it's not 200 feet away from any other, I mean, there's a residential south of him. So, I mean, is that 200 feet? I don't know how far it is between his establishment and south or east.
Attorney Decker.
Sure.
I'm good, go ahead.
Sure. So the way it works is the 200 feet only applies if you're outdoors. So there's going to be probably bars in town that don't have an outdoor premises and they're within 200 feet. that's not necessarily a thing this regulates at all. It's only if they want to extend outdoors. If they do that, if they have the 200 feet, they can just do that, and there's no need for any type of authorization, and they just can move forward. If they're within the 200 feet, they'll need that authorization, so the council can look at it and make sure that that extended premises, that close to residential, is still going to be okay.
Okay.
So that's where that comes into play. It's probably going to be somewhat frequent for places that want to have a big outdoor area, because West Dallas is a more densely packed area. We have a lot of corner bars. So it's probably going to happen with some regularity, but I'm sure there's places in commercial districts where it's not going to be a problem either.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
And then if I may,
Go ahead.
Alderman Grisham asked a question about the amount of the fee. So I was the one who created those amounts for those fees, and I did so in a way that I wanted to make sure that we weren't going to exceed the cost of administering the program. Tried to get it a number that would at least cover some expenses, but if the council wants to look at it more closely and adjust those fees, that's fine. I just know that the fees we have right now are going to be very enforceable, and if there's any expenses that that I'm not aware of or things that we'll need to cover, those fees could be increased. I just wanted to make sure they weren't above what our administrative cost was going to be.
Any other questions?
Mayor Devine, I have one more question.
Alderperson Grisham.
Extension of use would be just for, this wouldn't fall, you said that we were going to remove the event fee altogether. Would this be a public event fee separate of this? Like, say somebody wanted to have a block party, if we were closing down a street, this is totally separate of this?
Yes.
This is a separate, this is for an alcohol beverage premises.
Thought so. Thank you. Just wanted to be sure.
Thank you. Any other questions from the council? Move approval?
Move for approval?
Second.
I'm sorry. Mr. Budiak?
Yeah, I just, last year, what we did, we worked with the health department, because there's a decibel meter reading that we did, so we bought decibel level readers. So we knew 25 feet or 40 feet from the stage, it was under this many decibels. To the south, to the east, to the west. So every hour we would check those. So that's where we worked with the health department to kind of, you know, with that 200 feet, it's a kind of, you know, thing like that. So it's all in their bylaws or whatever they're called, the ordinance, that, so.
Yep. Go ahead, Attorney Decker.
For the benefit of the council, I believe Mr. Budick's talking about the section 7035 noise regulations in the city, where they actually measure decibel limits. That is just a generally applicable noise ordinance that applies all over the city for every business and everything. However, under this ordinance, all that's going to be measured is if you can hear the sound 200 feet away. So there are certain places, I'm sure, that could play light music or, you know, some acoustic music in a certain way that it's not going to be audible off of the property or that far away. That case, they're already authorized, there's nothing else for that person to do. However, decibels, doesn't matter how loud it is, if you stand 200 feet away and you can hear something coming from the property, that's too loud and you need that authorization. The decibel meter will still be helpful, because I'm sure when applicants come in saying, I want to be authorized to go 200 feet past, something the council could do is say, all right, that's fine, but the decibels have to be under this distance away. So it gives some creativity for certain situations the council could put on a license and make sure that it's compatible with the neighborhood and that the licensees are able to find a way to still have a successful business yet comply with the other interests the city has.
Thank you. We have a motion. We had a second. Is it on the motion?
I just wanted to ask him a real quick question about does that, is that in accordance with basically what the state requires as far as noise level too? I mean, are we jiving with their laws?
I'm not aware of a state law that puts a decibel limit on general activity.
Okay,
It's really left more up to local regulation.
okay.
Any other discussion on the motion to approve? All right, hearing none, I will ask the clerk to take a roll.
Alderperson Lysick.
Aye.
Grisham.
Aye.
Haas.
Aye.
Keen.
Aye.
Reinke.
Aye.
Rote.
Aye.
Stefanski.
Aye.
Tenorio.
Aye.
Vitale.
Aye.
9 in favor, 1 excused.
Motion carries.
Mayor Devine,
Alderman Lysick.
I move that we adjourn until Tuesday, April 20th at 7 PM.
Second.
There's a motion with a second by Alderperson Reinke. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned.